Hi, everyone. Well, it is no surprise that the end of the year is here. This year has been filled with surprises, at least for me. For starters, COVID 19 continued. And I thought that this was the year that we would see the end to this virus. But no such thing. It's only morphed into different things. And this idea of having some kind of a normal life and a normal work life, we were able to put that to the side as well. And then, unbeknownst to many of us, the great resignation. Individuals have taken the opportunity to rethink their lives, ways of moving in the world and their work. And finally, if that's not enough, like it or not, working from home has become a permanent thing for many of us. Needless to say, there have been a lot of surprises. So join us as we reflect on 2021.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Coffee Time with Masterminds. My name is Peta Blakely, and I'm the founder and principal of Blakely Consulting.
Welcome to Coffee Time with Masterminds. I am Cynthia Rojas, founder and principal of To Your Growth.
Welcome to Coffee Time with Masterminds. I'm Rebecca Tuttle, founder and principal of Grant Right Now and Grant Writing for Good.
Yay! I love that jingle. We were dancing in the background. Love it, love it, love it. Welcome to Coffee Time with Masterminds, which is a 30-minute conversation with and for leaders of mission-based organizations. I am Cynthia Rojas, and I'm joined by my co-host, Peta Blakely. Hi, Peta. How are you?
Good. Good morning. How are you?
I'm good. Rebecca Tuttle continues to be in the background producing our show and has been so helping us as we navigate this new way of being live. So,
What a year.
I know. Oh,
you said in your intro, it's no surprise that the year is ending, but I'm going to put it out there. It's caught me by surprise.
Yeah. I think you're right. I went to the bank the other day and someone said, I can't believe next week is Christmas. And I said, next week? Like, yeah.
Yeah, this year flew for a lot of reasons. For a lot of people, everything changed this year. We're just operating with like a lot of what I call cognitive overhead, right? There have been a lot of balls in the air, and that's required a really different level of focus. So yeah, I do think the end of the year is sneaking up on us, personally, professionally, in every way.
And we've used this time. I'm sorry, I have a hair. It's driving me nuts. So I apologize. But we are using this time, the next couple of weeks, to really, and we started last week, to really reflect on the past year. And you use the term close out the year. So you have this process in your business where you close out the year. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. At the beginning of each year, I try to set some goals for the year. And so the end of the year is an opportunity to reflect back and see how I've made progress on those things. And then I like to assess the health of my business and create some targets for the coming year. It's a great opportunity to see how far I've come, because I think a lot of times in the busyness of day to day, I miss that. I miss the progress that I'm making. And for example, one of the things that I really like is to reflect back on all of my client projects and what we accomplished together, which often turns out on reflection to be like a lot more than it felt like at the time.
Yeah. And so we know a lot of entrepreneurs and solopreneurs. And so your process, I have to tell you, sounds very organized. And usually the end of the year comes with a little bit of chaos because there's holiday shopping. There are multiple holidays the month of December. So there are.
And then a lot of us are also trying to close out our books, right? Close our year financially at the same time. Yeah.
Yes. So tell us, for the not so organized solopreneur, right? What could reflection look like?
So here's like a really simple, example is something like a spider diagram, which is imagine several axes with their 0 point in the middle so that they look like a spider web, right? And they can have as many points as you want, right? Maybe 4, maybe 10, depending on how detailed you want to be in your assessment. And then you write around at the end of each axis what you want to evaluate about your business, right?
Mhm.
So I have things like location, team, revenue, et cetera, et cetera. And I rate each of these things on a scale of 1 to 10, and then fill in my diagram. And that just gives me like some really quick feedback about what I think is going well and what I really think is hindering my business or hindering my enjoyment of my business. I also go through each client at the end of each month, and rate those projects. How are they going? How happy do I think the client is? Because I think that client satisfaction is my number one leading indicator for all my lagging indicators. So those tools, super fast, do not take a whole lot of analysis. It's kind of a quick gut check, and
Right.
it can help set some priorities.
You don't have to take a week off to do the
No.
reflection. You can
No,
do it
it's not a
before
week.
even,
Like half an hour. Yeah.
but it's important. And you always talk about this, right? You do it every quarter, and you're
Mhm.
constantly reflecting, which is, I think, what I got to see is your business grow. It just continues to
Yeah.
grow in a wonderful way. And
Well, it's funny, when I first started my business, I was not doing any of this. So even though my business is helping organizations create metrics and check in and then use them for continuous improvement, I didn't really have any systems to do that for myself in my business.
yeah.
And if you're not measuring things, you're not making progress towards them, right?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I implemented any system for setting targets and monitoring my progress, my entire business just took off, right? But here's my one warning. Targets for your business have to fit how you want to live in your business, right? So my first year, I set revenue targets and not quality of life targets, and you can imagine what happened. So now I take a much more balanced approach, setting targets to all of the things that I want for my business.
Yeah, and you're sneaking in some words in this that I want to like parse out. This idea of, am I having fun? Am I having enough fun? You mentioned that before. Why is that important?
I think it's just the fundamental thing about running a business. If you're not enjoying it, you shouldn't do it, right?
Yeah.
It's going to affect the quality of your work. It's going to affect your interactions with your clients. It's going to affect everything about the rest of your life. And the beauty of having your own business is that it can run and operate any way you want, right? It is really a reflection of you. So, control it and manage it and make it work for you.
Yeah, I was talking to someone the other day who said she chooses clients based on whether she wants to work with them. So there's a bit of a likability factor there. If she likes you and thinks she'll have, positive interaction and fun, then she'll take you on. And I thought, wow, that's a really great benchmark.
I think liking fun and mission alignment are super key. I've got to really feel like their work is very important to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we get asked a lot of questions about our personal business in terms of how to run it and things like that. Because this show is really focused and geared to a nonprofit leadership, we don't spend a lot of time talking about being an entrepreneur. So thank you for that. Thank you. How do you close out the year personally? Do you have any rituals?
Similar thing. I do another spider diagram for my personal life. That was something new that I started last year, and I think it helped. Then I set some goals. I mean, I hate the term New Year's resolutions.
Right.
Because, they tend not to be very productive, but I might start up some new initiatives. relating to things like health and fitness and, community engagement and things like that that are important. And then establish some new practices that I think will serve me. Um,
Mm.
yeah. I also like personally, I'm a little superstitious about New Year's. I like, some people always start New Year's with like $1 in their pocket and things like
Yep.
that. I always like to make sure that like my haircut is cut and my nails are done, and that helps me go into the new year feeling confident and ready. So
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
I have a friend whose mom used to say, oh my God, and this is years ago, and I've never forgotten, how you start the year
Yeah.
tells you how you live the year. And
Yeah.
so I actually use that for everything, right? So like how I
Mhm.
start a meeting dictates
Yeah. How you love the
the
meeting.
rest of the meeting, right?
Yep.
How I walk into a room dictates
Yep.
the rest of my experience. And so
Mhm.
for New Year's, she had a ritual that I kept up for a long time. And then it just, through the years you just change your behavior. She would change things like the sponges in her kitchen, the
Yep.
toilet seat. She would refresh the
Mhm.
toilet seat. She would throw away expired spices. January 1st is a great
Yeah.
time
That
to
is a great idea.
look at the expiration date of your spice rack.
Right. I mean, that start the year fresh and clean, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. I
yeah,
think that's a great idea. Yeah, and it's also like an opportunity to give yourself a little bit of grace about things that like, maybe you didn't accomplish this year,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Like
Um,
like
yeah.
when I think about coffee time, right?
Mhm.
And the goals that we set out, we could
Mhm.
ponder what we didn't achieve, or
Right.
we could focus on all we've done. So we got a
Yeah.
logo,
Mhm.
right? We've been working with people behind the scenes in
Yeah.
improving the show. Our viewership is up. You and I
Yep.
were looking at the analytics the other day.
Mhm.
We
You're
took,
syndicated.
yeah,
We're international. Yep.
yes.
Yeah.
We are now an international show syndicated out of Australia, which is
Mhm.
awesome. Still want to get invited there to talk about personally, face to
We
face.
can we can work on that for next year.
Yes, face to
Yep.
face about what it's like to host this show. But
Yeah.
um, and so we've done many things throughout the show. We've changed them this year, where we
Mhm.
started where every week it was a different topic, and now we have topics. We run them for about 4 to 5 weeks because what we found from our viewers, but also with our other guests, is that there's so much to say. We don't get it all in 30 minutes. So we've done a lot of changes and made a lot of progress to coffee time. And also the big shift was when Rebecca had to take a leave. And do we miss her on the show? But her taking on the production part of stuff has really elevated the process of hosting, has really improved the process of hosting, because there's a lot that's happening in the background that you're not aware of right now.
Yep.
So being able to adapt was, I think, a really good thing this year for us.
Yeah. I mean, I think adapt is the theme of this year.
Oh my God. Yeah. Let's talk about COVID. I thought it would
Yeah.
be over.
We thought it was going to be over. We've been thinking it was going to be over since we started this show, right? Um,
Yeah.
and I think that's another thing that we personally and within our organizations have to give ourselves a lot of credit for and a little bit of grace around, is that we adapted to COVID the first time, and now we're adapting again to the realization that we're not just going back, right? We're not going to rewind to the 2019 versions of our businesses. So, in the last year, organizations had given up their leases, moved into smaller footprints, started hoteling their desks, made working from home permanent, started hiring people who don't even work in or don't even live in their state because they
Mhm.
realize that geography is irrelevant. Um, changed the way they changed fundamentally how they operate and how they communicate with each other, and continued to do the work, right? Still
Yeah.
did the stuff.
Yeah.
And I think like that really bears repeating.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, I had a question and I just forgot it. Okay.
Yeah.
The story of my life. I
I
got more forgetful in 2021. I think it's COVID. I'm gonna blame it on COVID.
think
But
it's COVID. Um, I think it's cognitive overhead.
I love that term.
Yeah.
I love that
Cognitive
term.
overhead. It's
It was
definitely
like
not age.
it reminds me of when I think a couple of years ago I was starting to get very forgetful and I was afraid that because I was watching Grey's Anatomy and it
Mhm.
was crazy. I thought I had early onset Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
It's crazy, right? But I started doing some research and so found this term called information overload. And if you think about it, we are absorbing more information than we ever had in our lives, faster than our brains can adapt.
Mhm.
So I started throwing that word around whenever somebody got aggravated that I couldn't
Yeah.
remember something. I'm like, oh, honey, I suffer from information overload. And my nephew who's 7 years old now, 8, he turned 8.
Yeah.
He gets he gets frustrated with me sometimes because I'll forget something. I'll
Yeah.
go into a room and be like, Leo, what was I looking for? He's like, I don't know. Why do you forget? I was like, you too will forget one
Well,
day.
somebody recently was talking to me
Mhm.
about scenes, about the fact that we're processing our reality in scenes.
Oh,
I can't remember who it was.
uh-huh.
But essentially, and I think this explains so much of some of the cognitive difficulties that we all started to experience in 2020, that as you're moving through life, you're sort of experiencing everything that you're doing as a series of scenes, like in a play, right?
Hmm.
And this sort of explains why when you walk into another room, you can't remember what you went in there to do because you're in a new scene, right?
Yes.
The the scene in which you needed a pen and you couldn't find a pen was happening in your kitchen, and now you're in your office and like the scene is just gone, right? I noticed this, and I think a lot of people experienced this in 2020 when we started to have all of our meetings on Zoom, that we had a lot of trouble remembering what had happened in those meetings, right? And I think one of it was we were just having so many, right? When you physically move from one meeting to another, there's, a half hour, maybe 60-minute gap where you get back on the subway or you get back in your car and you sort of like process what
Hmm.
happened. With Zoom, you can log off one meeting and on to the next in a second, right?
Yes.
So there isn't really any time for you to record, right? Or reflect on what happened. But it's also all the same scene, right? The room around you doesn't change, right?
Yeah.
People look more or less the same when you're only seeing this
Yeah.
much of them, right? So you don't have as much richness
Hmm.
to, right, to recall things, to like store the information on. And I think that is really, it took us a little while. It took most of us a little while to figure out some workarounds for that, but it's really contributed to some of that stressed feeling that I think we've all been experiencing over the last, or a lot of us have been experiencing over the last year or so.
Yeah, and you've used the word grace a lot
Yeah.
in this episode, and it really is about grace
Mhm.
and cutting yourself some slack and really applauding what you have accomplished. So
Yeah.
you and I also had big major moves this year.
Yeah.
You moved down south. I
Mhm.
also moved down south, and that was major. You had set
Mhm.
out the goal early in the year,
I
and
had set out the goal early in the year to explore some places and decide where to move. And by June, I was in a new house.
yes, I
So
remember that.
I
It was very
overshot a little bit on
fast.
that one. Yeah.
It was very fast. It was
Yeah.
very fast. And
And
then,
that's kind of the pace of things
uh-huh.
this year. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's I love your why not attitude, right?
Yeah.
Why not live somewhere else that
Right.
that brings you joy? We're no longer bound by the boundaries of our town or city or
Mhm.
state. Businesses have grown
Yeah.
because of this new way of working. Everyone I know now is, well, almost everyone I know is
Yeah.
going international. They have
Yeah.
people from different countries. Look at us, coffee
Mhm.
time
Mhm.
got picked up, and
Yeah.
so COVID did that, right?
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
made this
It,
transact this
it relieved us of the assumption that you had to be able to have face-to-face meetings with somebody to work with them.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that you can build relationships. There are people still struggling though. I do have
Mhm.
to admit there are people still struggling to that end. So this show is also about nonprofit leaders.
Yeah.
And so we never forget our nonprofits. And so the question is, how can leaders take this information or what we're talking about and be intentional if they're not already? Because I'm sure many of them are. But what are new ways of using this time to reflect on 2021 for both for you, the leader, the organization, and also the individuals in your agency? Do you have any ideas, Peter?
One of the things that we have talked about a lot over the last year is how do you have important conversations when you might not be face to face. So I think that's something to take into consideration for conducting these conversations. Is that the same kind of processes of reflection that we've been talking about doing, like personally and in our businesses, apply to organizations. And this year in particular is a really great year for organizations to come together and reflect on their progress, what they were able to accomplish this year, what they might have accomplished that hadn't even set out to, but they hadn't realized at the beginning of the year they were going to need to do, right? And what might be surprise accomplishments this year, because you get credit for those too. And to establish some priorities for next year, right? This is a really good opportunity to like bring teams together and think about how you have been working together and how you're going to work together going forward.
Yeah, and so we found, studies over and over indicate that employees are happiest with leaders who model behavior,
Mm.
right? So if you tend to be a leader that's running 100 miles an hour because that's just the nature of the work, and you also had this global pandemic you had to deal with, if you take some time to pause, it gives permission to your staff to do the same thing. So you're gonna want to think about that so that you can model that behavior. And so really easy tactical things is hosting an informal Zoom chat where people come and reflect about around the year. And you don't need to have an agenda, and people don't need to be afraid they're going to walk away with more work. But really, how do we pause and applaud ourselves and not beat ourselves up for what we didn't do? I love what you said, Peter. Also acknowledging the things you did that you didn't set out to do, right? Those moments in your year where you actually accomplished a lot more than you thought
Yeah.
you
And you
had
might have
even
realized.
imagined.
Yeah.
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 So
Another
that's
thing I'm seeing a lot of organizations do is, closing down entirely for a week or 2 weeks at the end of the year, um,
yes.
which I think is a really positive reflection and a nice way to honor how hard people have really worked this year, right? And how
Mhm.
tired people are.
Yeah, I am happily struck at
Yeah.
the number of people taking the rest of the year off, the next
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
And really pleased, and I don't remember so many people, right? And so again, I think is
Mhm.
also the structural care that we've been talking about.
Yeah.
Agencies are really pushing for their staff to take time off.
Yeah. And structural care is a great way to refer to that. It's super important. People are tired,
They
right?
are.
Yeah.
We continue to be tired. And to jumpstart our year, we are going to have a friend and also productivity and goal guru.
Mm.
Lindsay Satterfield is coming on January 7th. And
Oh, right.
she's going to set us off in how to start the year right. Because once we do this reflection, we now should use that opportunity to set some goals,
Mhm.
right, for the next year. And this is not about overwhelming yourself, but it really is about what you said. What gets measured gets done.
Right.
And
Right.
so I know you have pushed me this year a couple of times to set out some income projections and goals. And I was like, well, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. And you just kept at it. And you're so right. I have something to measure now,
Right.
right? I don't use it to beat myself up. This is important because we're so good at that. We're so
Yeah.
good at that, right?
Right.
But to have a goal, we all have this natural competitiveness inside of us, right? Then tells me where I have to up my game and where I could, use some time to slow down. So
Yeah.
you gave me that gift this year.
All right. Well, remember to also measure your free time.
Yes, I have to get a little bit better about that. You talk about quality of life measures. And
Yeah.
so one of the reasons why I moved down south was because the weather is a little better, and to be with my family. And that has just been amazing. Amazing. To go from never seeing them or hardly seeing them
Yeah.
to now I can just drive to their house is
Yeah.
like, wow. It's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's great.
So okay. So
Yeah.
a lot of nonprofits, we're going to wrap up soon, but a lot of nonprofits, when they think about closing out the year, they think about finances and 990s and reconciling budgets. And yes, that is important as well. But what we are saying is that leaders could also think about closing out the year, quote unquote, personally as a leader, as an organization, so that you get to hit the reset button come January, and as individuals, as including the individuals in your organization. So let's not forget those three levels and how closing out the year would benefit if we focus on those three things as well.
Mhm.
Anything else? Any parting words, Peter?
I think the main benefit in establishing a set of goals and establishing a set of metrics around them is that you can reflect on your progress and you can make improvements where you need to, right? It's not for beating yourself up. It's not for criticizing anybody's performance. It's just to help you prioritize, right? It's to help you make decisions about what you're going to do and maybe more importantly, what you're not going to do. And it's to help you think creatively and strategically to reach them. And I think that's the best way to make them helpful and useful personally and in organizations.
Yes, yes. And at the end, we deserve to live our best lives so that then we can serve others and help them live their best lives. So with that, we say goodbye. We do have 2 more weeks and therefore 2 more episodes, and we will continue this reflection. And then we'll start the year fresh with Lindsay, who's going to take us through exercises and practices that we can start to have a really great
That's going to be fantastic.
2022.
That's going to be great. Have a good weekend, everybody.
All right, take care. Bye.